Hello everyone. I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today we are going to talk about how I wrote The Asylum. This book, first and foremost, has some disclaimers on it. First, this is an art book that Bryan and I created together, so it combines a short story that I wrote with photography that Bryan did, and this particular photography does include artistic nudity. So if it offends, I do not recommend. The second disclaimer that I have is, as the title suggests, this story is about insane asylums. Specifically, it follows this poor, unfortunate woman who is surrendered to the asylum by her husband because he desires to trade her in for a new model, so to speak. And as I talked about in my previous video, how I wrote Oni Whispers in the Snuff Box, that unfortunately a lot of people that were put in insane asylums did not actually have any sort of mental illness or any sort of issues with their mental faculties, and they were just people who were thrown away by their husbands or their families or by society in general. This was a very common fate for women, that oftentimes these were perfectly sane people who were just thrown away for arbitrary reasons and locked up and never to be seen again. So this particular story doesn't really take place in a super historical time period, just in that this particular scenario was so incredibly common all throughout the history of insane asylums, both in different parts of Europe and here in the States. It was very common for husbands to send their wives to insane asylums for any variety of reasons, and then conveniently have a new wife after a period of time after they send their wife away. That is what this story is about. It is about a main character who is thrown away by her husband, and she suspects that he has been having an affair and that he decided to conveniently ship her off somewhere so that he can marry the lady that he's been having an affair with. And she is left with the fallout, which is being locked up in the loony bin with people who are in similar situations to her and people who are actually loony. It's basically meant to be in a Victorian-esque style era. It is definitely not modern, especially because a lot of the more modern insane asylums, because contrary to popular belief, insane asylums, many of them actually didn't even close here in the United States until the 1960s. Was frighteningly recent that we still had these establishments up and running here in our country, and people being treated in deplorable conditions and straight up being tortured. It was even worse during these more colonial or even Victorian or even way before that times, because even way back in the day, that's what is referred to as bedlam. And I talk about that in Oni Whispers in the Snuff Box, that this refers to an actual specific insane asylum, but the term became adopted for just insane asylums in general, where people were just thrown away, and if you weren't crazy when you came in, you sure were going to be crazy by the time you left, aka died. This particular story is, honestly, I would say one of the most disturbing and scariest stories that I've written. Now, Oni Whispers in the Snuff Box is definitely scary in that it is classic monster horror type of scary, that there's a monster, it's very scary, the monster is attacking the main character, you're not really too sure of what's real and what's not real and all that. Whereas in the asylum, there is no monster, there isn't anything actually attacking her, it's her being attacked by the situation, that she has been ripped from her home, sent away to this place against her will, that she suddenly has to follow all of these arbitrary rules, that she is forced to suddenly live with these strangers, that she has no say in the matter, that she has no privacy, she has no personal belongings, even the clothes on her back are taken away from her, and she is given standard issue patient clothing to wear, and that basically her whole world has been turned upside down, and just how she deals with that. And I did do research into the practices that they did during the Victorian era for insane asylum patients, and I combined that a bit also with, in general, different eras of practices as well around that era, not the more modern eras, because it was more so I wanted to have the feel. This is not meant to be a historical fiction piece so much as it is meant to just present the horrors of these centuries of insane asylums and how all of these poor people were thrown away and mistreated is really the focus of this story. Of course, no spoilers, but as y'all can imagine, the story does not have a happy ending. The ending is exactly what you would expect, honestly, with this type of story, but I feel that it is an important story to tell. And it is paired, I would say, beautifully, but there is nothing beautiful about this story, and there's nothing beautiful about the photos that Bryan took either. I mean, the model is beautiful. She is a beautiful lady, y'all. Gorgeous, but the nature of the photos are not beautiful. They're scary, they're disturbing, and they're meant to be. And when I actually sat down and wrote this story, Bryan had already taken these photos and he had actually put together the photo set. And some of the art books that we created, we did this way, where he would put together the photo story and send me the PDF. And then he'd be like, I need you to write something to go with this. I need you to take this photo story and then give me a written story to go with it. So that's what I did. I had the pictures and I looked them over several times, beginning to end. And then I went on YouTube, looked up some really creepy music, and then just started listening to it, getting into that just weird, creepy, crazy, scary mindset of I'm in an insane asylum, I'm trapped here, I've gotten everything taken away from me, just getting into that mindset of the character. Like, I guess you could call it like method acting almost, but it was like method writing, I guess, without physically actually doing any of that, just putting myself kind of in that mindset. And it was funny because I started like in the middle of the day, like in the afternoon when I started writing this and started this whole process. And by the time I was finished, it was nighttime, and I did not get up at all during this process. So I actually ended up writing in a dark room because I didn't think to turn any of the lights on, which just kind of added to the ambiance. And while I was doing that, I really did kind of feel like a crazy person by the time I finished writing that story, y'all, which is what made it so incredibly successful. Is that it's very crazy and it's very scary. And when I turned over the story to Bryan and he read it, he actually wrote back to me. He's like, wow, you're really trying hard to give me nightmares tonight. This is really scary. And it's not scary in the like spoopy, jump out from behind the door sort of scary. It's scary in the it sticks in the corners of your brain sort of scary. And it's also the scary in that this was real. This type of thing happened to people in real life. We're not talking about spoopy monsters that are not real. We're talking about real monsters, humans that did terrible things to other humans. So that's truly where the real horror of this story comes through. That is how I created, honestly, one of the scariest books that I have ever written. I'm very proud of it. It's an amazing piece, and I think it speaks a lot to the plight of mental illness and how far we've come, but we still have so far to go. So I hope y'all like this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a like, and if y'all are new, please subscribe. Thank y'all so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.